Halo, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Bapak Ibu semuanya. Good afternoon. Oke, apakah is my voice clear? Apakah suara saya terdengar jelas? Oke, please give a thumb up. Thank you, Pak Mustafa. Halo, Ibu Emi. Okay, thank you for joining us. Also for Pak Dedi Avandi from Bekasi, okay, who already gave me the thumb up. Thank you. And Ibu Dwi Yuni. All right. Yes, that's very clear, I guess, Pak Basuki. All right. Okay, so welcome to Atlaz Webinar, Beyond Numbers, Menggunakan Asesmen Formatif untuk Memahami Konsep. Okay, so our webinar today is presented by Atlaz to inspiring teachers here who have been joining us since 2:30 actually. When I open up this Zoom, all of the teachers are already here, some of you. Thank you so much. And I believe that there are also some of you who are still in your school. Thank you. So I am Nadia Isnan. I will be the moderator of today's webinar. Okay, before I discuss and tell you some important notes of today's webinar, I would like to greet all of you first. Okay, so I can see on our gallery, okay, there is Bapak Mustafa. Halo Bapak from Jawa Timur, how are you this afternoon Bapak? Fine. Okay, boleh di-unmute. Actually, you can unmute yourself now. Oh, there you go. Assalamualaikum Bapak.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, so Bapak from Jember ya Pak? Are you
Jember,
from?
East Java.
Oh, East Java. Okay, so are you now still at school or you are home already?
I'm at home now.
Okay, all right. Okay, so which grade are you teaching now, Mr. Mustafa, if I may know?
Junior high school.
Oh,
Junior high
nice.
school.
Junior high school. Okay, Bapak. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, so happy, what is that? Happy, okay. Happy exploring in our Zoom today. Okay, good. We also have Ibu Emi, and I can see Bapak Syamsuddin and Ibu Siti Mariam from Sukawangi, ya Bu ya. Thank you for joining us. And there is also, okay, nah ini, there is, who is that? Bapak. Okay, Bapak, I guess you need to change your name, Pak. Okay, because I cannot see your name. Okay, good. There's also Pak Dedi Avandi from Bekasi. Thank you so much, Bapak Ibu. How are you this afternoon? You can tell me on our chat box. Okay. And there is also Lisna, Ibu Lisna from Parepare. Wow, it's far away, I guess. Okay, semoga ya, we wish that you are going to have a very wonderful experience joining Atlaz webinar today. And actually, if you cannot hear us right now, you can leave, yes. Jadi bisa di leave dulu, okay, and then join us again, okay. All right. So now our activity today, before we start, okay, actually we are going to have, yes, an exciting and informative session today with our with the two expert speakers. But then before we dive into the presentation and discussion, I would like to share some important notes for today's event. The first one, okay, all of the participants today will get promo. Yay! So you are going, if you want to have an experience using our products, the books, and the what is that? The online learning as well. Nah, it is the opportunity for you to get the promo on Shopee, Atlaz Shopee. Okay, and I'm going to share the code, the promo code this afternoon. Yes, at the end of the session. And the second one, okay, I am going to start to have and to use more English for our today's webinar. Okay. Because I got challenged from Mr. Kevin anyway, because Mr. Kevin wants to try also to share more in English so that we as an English teacher, we got, what is that? We got more exposure in English, right? Okay. So how is it? That's the second. Okay, now the third one. The present list will be given at the end of the session. So hopefully, Bapak Ibu, you will not ask for the present list because I am going to share at the end of the session. And then, yes, as our last webinar, we are going to give you 2 keywords also. Okay, so the presenter will give you the 2 keywords, and you are going to fill those 2 keywords on our present list. Okay, so what is the use of the present list? So the E-Certificate, that's the fourth important note. The certificate, the E-Certificate will be sent to you if you have filled your name on our present list. Okay, so please make sure that you have filled the present list. Okay, so because we cannot know that you are here already, even though you have registered, but we cannot know that you are here. What is that? Yes, having and listen and watch our webinar only on the present list. We can find you. Okay, so please make sure you fill in the present list. Okay. All right, so if there is some technical issue or any comments, you can actually use our chat box, okay, to write down anything. And okay, our webinar today entitled Beyond Numbers, Menggunakan Asesmen Formatif untuk Memahami Konsep. Okay, so the things that we are going to discuss today, a second. Okay, the things that we are going to discuss today will be about, okay. So the things that we are going to discuss today, sorry, there are some noises, okay, before. So it will discuss about the effective and meaningful formative assessment. Okay, so how can we give that to our students so that our students will not only focus on the numbers or their scores that is written on the test paper, okay, but also focus on how well they understand the lessons. Okay, so the discussion today will be delivered by the experienced teacher and instructor. So the first one is Mr. Wahya, Pak Wahya Mursita M.Pd. So he is actually the chief of MGMP Bahasa Inggris Provinsi Banten. Okay, Pak Wahya is already here, I guess. Hello, Mr. Wahya. Hello, hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, yes. Okay, well, I can hear your voice, tapi kayak it is not really clear.
Oh, really?
Oh,
How about
yeah.
now?
Yes.
Is it okay? Yeah.
Is it fine now? Okay, it's fine now. Okay. Also, thank you, Bapak. We are going to meet you again after this on the first session. And on the second session, we have Kevin Febrian B.Sc. Mr. Kevin is academic manager at an international education institution. Hello, Mr. Kevin. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Nadia.
Okay, are you ready for today's webinar?
Yes, very ready.
All right, cool. I can hear you clearly. Thank you so much. Okay, now, yes, we are going to meet Mr. Kevin again on the second session. Okay, so I also want to greet some teachers who join us on YouTube. Okay, let me check. So there are some of teachers who cannot join here on our Zoom because of the internet connection. So you can move actually to YouTube. Yes. Okay, so I can see Ibu Darmawati, Ibu Nuning, and also Pak Hotran Situmorang. Hello, Bapak Ibu, thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so I also would like to remind you that we have Instagram at hi.atlaz. So if you want to share this moment today, so that there are a lot of teachers out there will get inspired from you, because you are here now to develop yourself, and I believe that a lot of teachers out there will also join and develop themselves as well to join you, to follow you. Please do not forget to tag Atlaz at hi.atlaz. Okay, so I guess now without any further ado, yes, I would like to welcome our first speaker. Okay, our first speaker today, Mr. Wahya. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss
Okay.
Nadia. Well, hello everyone, great teachers all over Indonesia. I'm happy to meet you today. And actually, what I'm going to tell you here is not about a new thing. I think everybody is quite familiar with the formative test. Well, once again, thank you for the time given to me, Miss Nadia. Should I start now? Hello?
Hello. Yes, sir. Please.
All right.
Okay, you can start now,
Well,
I guess. Yes.
so today we'd like to talk about formative tests because in our new curriculum, the government, in this case, Kementerian Pendidikan, tried to point out about the importance of formative tests. And I think I should share my screen, or will Miss Nadia help me to share the screen?
Okay, hello. Yes, Pak. I think I can help you.
Okay. Well, this is actually, I just want to point out about the routine activity, and later, hello, Mr. Kevin. I'm sure that Mr. Kevin has prepared something, what is that, interesting about the formative assessment, because so far, we teachers usually are dealing with formative tests that maybe it is quite stressful for students, and hopefully later Mr. Kevin with the team from Atlaz will try to introduce the application that might be become a good solution for us. Okay, well everyone, talking about our daily activity, teaching the students, we teachers are usually dealing with at least 3 kinds of assessment. The first is diagnostic, and then the second one is formative and summative assessment. Actually, the diagnostic can be categorized as formative assessment as well, actually. Yeah, but we usually apply the diagnostic assessment in the beginning of learning process. Now, of course, everyone has known about the importance of diagnostic assessment because, if I'm not mistaken, last week Atlaz has given this kind of webinar about diagnostic assessment, which covers cognitive assessment and also non-cognitive assessment. Well, okay. Next slide, Ms. Nadia. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, we are teachers by the what we call the government policy. We should now know about the paradigm shifting, toward assessment. Previously, maybe we put an emphasis of the assessment on the summative. Maybe Should I speak English all the time or should I sometimes mix with some bahasa Indonesia? Hello everyone, Bapak Ibu guru hebat semua. Mungkin kadang-kadang pakai bahasa Indonesia kali ya?
Yeah, that's okay, Bapak. We can
Alright.
mix it. Okay,
Okay,
especially on the terms.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
terms,
okay.
some specific terms.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you,
Bapak.
Bapak.
Yeah, you're welcome. Previously, we teachers focus on the summative assessment because the function of the summative assessment is especially for the report, raport, nilai raport, report score. But right now, we should realize that actually formative assessment is much more important. Why? We should emphasize on the formative assessment, because we should what we should pay attention to the process of learning itself. Jadi bagaimanapun proses pembelajaran itu Bapak Ibu harus kita perhatikan karena yang namanya proses kalau misalnya tidak benar-benar ya we cannot get good result, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's why then the current curriculum, or we usually call it as IKM ya, implementasi kurikulum merdeka, kita diharapkan untuk banyak fokus di formative assessment daripada summative. Nah, why is that? Kenapa seperti itu? Okay, next slide, Miss Nadia. Sorry. Nah, karena ini, Bapak Ibu, kurikulum merdeka itu. Jadi di dalam kurikulum merdeka itu kita mesti menjaga betul, ya. We must put emphasis on the activities, on the learning experiences for the students. So they really know what they are doing when they are learning, and then what is the goal, ya, when they are learning new thing itu. Dan itu merupakan bagian dari siklus yang memang harus kita kerjakan. Ya. Siklusnya memang seperti itu. Jadi kalau di awal tadi, I said that we teachers are usually dealing with diagnostic tests and then formative tests and then summative tests. Now, then let's continue to the next slide. Nah, this is it. Previously, we see the assessment is like the picture on the left ya. Di sini ada semacam piramida. Kita justru mulainya dari off dulu, assessment of learning, kemudian assessment for learning, dan kemudian assessment as learning. Padahal semestinya we are supposed to do the first is assessment as learning, and then after that assessment for learning, baru kemudian assessment of learning. Nah, kenapa seperti itu? Nah, we can see from the next slide. Mari kita sama-sama sedikit demi sedikit mengungkap apa latar belakang. Well, this is it. Kenapa assessment as learning process? Ya, karena penilaian sebagai proses pembelajaran, we can get this assessment to make reflection of the learning process. Don't forget that every time after we finish learning process in the classroom, we then must reflect. Yeah, we must make the student reflect. In reflection, don't forget about three term. Yeah, the first is from the word K. K itu dari kata know sebenarnya. Knowing something, kita itu sudah sampai di mana setelah pembelajaran. After we learn, itu what we know. And then after that, the student should then have a question of what should we learn more. Nah, setelah yang diketahui, kemudian akan apa lagi yang berikutnya. Ya, itu tadi yang pertama adalah K, knowing, and then the second one is W, what should we learn more, and then the next one is L, ya, the learning itself. Pembelajarannya mesti seperti apa? Seperti itu. Yeah. So in this case, the student must be enthusiastic in learning. Kan sebenarnya we teachers itu pengennya siswa itu ketika belajar, they can keep their enthusiasm in studying. Nah, yang agak susah bagi kita adalah the difficult thing for the teachers is about how to keep the student become enthusiastic in learning. Betul ya Bapak Ibu? Biasanya kan begitu ya, menjaga antusiasme mereka itu seperti apa. Nah, okay, then that's why kita kalau membuat siswa belajar itu, kita kan juga harus tahu ukuran-ukurannya mereka sampai di mana. Nah, ini by having assessment. Nah, assessment itu sebenarnya we can give the assessment along with the process of the learning itself. Jadi kalau memberikan assessment, penilaian, tidak harus menunggu sampai selesai ya Bapak Ibu. Do you agree? Ya, jadi while learning, nah we can have some assessment. Nah ini nanti sepertinya Pak Kevin barusan manggut-manggut karena Pak Kevin sudah menyiapkan kira-kira pada waktu learning nanti itu students kira-kira akan diberikan assessment yang bagaimana. Yang menarik pastinya ya Pak Kevin ya. Ya, okay. Well then, next slide, Miss Nadia. Sorry. Well, what benefit that can be obtained by the students? Nah ini, formative test can provide benefit not only for the teachers but also for students. Nah, we can like what we can read here. Nah, untuk siswanya, they can understand about new material, and then they can also measure their knowledge. Jadi kalau mereka misalnya, oh, saya pengetahuan saya sampai sini nih, kayaknya saya perlu tahu lebih banyak nih. Nah, siswa sebenarnya bisa sampai di sana. And then it can encourage students to make betterment. Dan tentu saja akan mendorong siswa untuk lebih baik lagi. Mereka tidak puas sampai di situ. And the other benefit for student, it can provide enrichment for the student. Nah, itu juga menjadikan pengayaan ya. Nah, for teachers, of course, the teacher can know the level of the student understanding, and then the second one, knowing parts of the material that difficult or easy to understand. Jadi dari formative test itu guru akan bisa memetakan ini yang sulit bagian mana ini ya buat siswa saya, seperti itu. And then besides that, of course, as teachers we can predict. Nah, dengan wah ini kok hasil asesmennya seperti ini ya, berarti mungkin strateginya perlu saya ubah. Nah, by having formative test, nah kita bisa memprediksi apakah learning strategi kita sudah betul atau perlu diubah. Ya, that's it. Okay, let's continue to the next slide. Nah ini, if we talk about formative assessment, ternyata ada macam-macam. Nah selama ini, we teachers, what kind of formative assessment that we give to the students, to our students. Karena kalau assessment, it can be in the form of written or non-written. Nah yang pertama yang ada di slide ini adalah yang non-written. Yang pertama, class discussion. Don't forget, when the students are having a discussion in their groups, of course, we need to prepare the thing that they should discuss. Of course, we should design a good lesson plan for them. So when they are having discussion, we cannot leave the class, but we have to observe the students. So we know what's going on when the students are having the discussion. Now, besides that, we can also have the student to play a mini drama, something like that. Ya, ini tetap lesson plan-nya Bapak Ibu harus kita perhatikan. Jangan hanya misalnya kita menugasi mereka bikin drama. Of course, ya, there are some steps. I believe that you all teachers know about this. Karena memang ini adalah sesuatu yang rutin. And then beside class discussion, drama, now we can also have the formative assessment in the forms of product. Ya, kalau di gambarnya nih buku, tapi ya bukunya tidak segini juga ya. Ini cuma ilustrasi saja Bapak Ibu. Kalau saya pernah itu mencoba menggunakan story jumper Bapak Ibu. Barangkali Bapak Ibu pernah ya. Itu ada story jumper. So we can ask the students to create their own story or modify the existing story, something like that. Jadi dengan begitu, ketika mereka membuat story jumper, itu mereka bisa memasukkan suara mereka, mereka bisa menuliskan hal-hal yang kalimatnya tidak usah rumit-rumit gitu, Bapak Ibu. Karena di story jumper itu there are a lot of templates, a lot of example. So I think the students will be interested there to do the activities in the story jumper. And then besides the product, we can use oral test. Now, oral test, of course, we try to assess about the students' proficiency in speaking English. Once again, that's the example of non-written formative assessment. And how about the written formative assessment? Excuse me. I have a little cough. Sorry. Now, this is it. Example of written formative assessment. Yeah, it can be in the forms of reflection. Now, talking about reflection, the student can write about what they feel after they learn about a certain topic or material. And even the student can also, let's say, make an emoticon about what they feel. It's actually also a kind of written formative assessment. And then they can also make journal. Now, of course, we do not give the burden for them to make long journal. Yeah? I mean the simple journal. So when they are participating in the learning process, they have some notes. That's what I mean by journal. And then they also know after learning a kind of materials what the follow-up activity that they have to do. And then, well, what about essay? Essay don't, give such heavy burden for when after we have a diagnostic test, the student can we know which the students that are superior and in the opposite. Now, I think for the essay we should give the student who are superior. Yeah, for students who are the opposite, I think do not give too much burden of writing essay. Yeah, so once again, about formative assessment, we must consider about the different or about the various kind of students that we have. Yeah, it is relevant with the IKM, implementasi kurikulum merdeka. Kita harus mempertimbangkan perbedaan antar siswa. Ya, jadi tidak bisa memaksakan ya, Bapak Ibu. Do you agree? Yeah, okay. And then, nah ini about the fourth kind of written formative assessment yang biasa adalah written test. It can be in the form of multiple choice or about open question. It can be like that. Okay, Miss Nadia, next slide, please. Nah, Bapak Ibu, wah ini lembaran ini kita bacanya agak stressful ini ya. Tidak ada gambar sama sekali. Biarin nggak apa, stresnya sekarang tapi nanti Bapak Ibu akan diberikan solusi oleh Mr. Kevin biar nggak pusing. Well, jadi di slide ini, to optimize the advantage, formative assessment should be designed as follow. Yang mudah-mudahan poin-poin ini nanti kemungkinan akan ada yang dibawakan oleh Mr. Kevin nantinya. Jadi, first, formative assessment shouldn't have high risk. Jadi, to avoid the students being stressful, kita jangan terlalu membuat beban yang berat, Bapak Ibu, di dalam memberikan formative assessment gitu. Makanya tadi bisa dikombinasikan dengan learning process itself. And then two, formative assessment can utilize various techniques and instruments. Yeah. An assessment can be categorized as a formative assessment as long as the objective is to increase the quality of students. Ya, gitu. Nah ini tadi kita kaitannya dengan siswa yang memang berbeda. Then number three, formative assessment can be carried out together with the learning process that is still on progress. It means that they can be combined at the same time. Yeah. And then number four, formative assessment can use simple learning method so the feedback can be obtained quickly. Formative assessment that is done in the beginning of the learning, nah ini yang tadi saya maksud, itu diagnostic test pun sebenarnya masuknya ke formative assessment. Ya. Itu memberikan informasi bagi guru, and give information to teachers about the students' readiness. Siswa itu kita sudah sampai mana sih mereka tahapnya, ya. Makanya kalau di dalam IKM, Bapak Ibu, itu ada istilah apa namanya CP, capaian pembelajaran. Ya. Sampai mana sih anak kita itu? Of course, tidak mungkin bagi kita untuk memberikan beban yang sama. Bebannya harus berbeda. That's the thing that we have to really consider. Ya. Makanya di sini, based on the assessment, teachers must have to modify the lesson plan and make different learning to fit the student's need. And then number six, assessment instrument can provide information about what aspect that the student should be developed and increase. It can also increase the quality of their writing, their creation, and their performances. Itu yang diharapkan dari assessment instrument. Okay, Miss Nadia, the next slide, please. Nah, ini about incorporating fun into formative assessment. Nah, ini mungkin bisa dibilang bentuk-bentuknya, ya. Incorporating fun into formative assessment can help keep student engaged and motivated. Itu kan yang sebenarnya kita harapkan ya Bapak Ibu, jangan sampai ketika ada assessment, siswa itu tidak engage di dalam pembelajaran. Yeah. How? It is important for us to make an effort so the students still engage in the learning and get the assessment, and we can get the data about how far they understand about the material. Nah, ini some ways to do the activity include gamification, peer assessment, and interactive quizzes. Nah, ini nanti Pak Kevin ini, Mr. Kevin pasti punya ini. Namanya apa? Tapi saya masih belum tahu. Itu mungkin bagian dari secret of Mr. Kevin ini yang mengembangkannya. Oke, next slide, Miss Nadia. Ya, example of fun formative assessment bisa juga seperti ini. I think Bapak Ibu sekalian pasti familiar dengan aplikasi yang kita dapat secara online. Ini ada Kahoot, quizzes, ya, and then action recap, and then ya bisa saja peer feedback activity seperti itu. Ya, Bapak Ibu, ini saya hanya sekedar menyampaikan yang saya yakin Bapak Ibu sekalian sudah ketahui sebenarnya, hanya kita mencoba mengingatkan, dan ini sebagai pengantar saja nanti sebelum kemudian Mr. Kevin will introduce you to a kind of assessment that is really interesting for the students. So we are not confused with numbers and numbers as the result of assessment. Seperti itu sih kira-kiranya. Ya. Yeah, this is the conclusion. I think that's all for the presentation today from me. Thank you very much for paying attention, and we still have a little session ya, Miss Nadia ya. Okay, Miss
Yes,
Nadia.
Bapak. Thank you so much, Mr. Wahya. That's a really insightful one. Yes, especially when Pak Wahya told us there are 6 points about the things that we have to do to utilize the formative assessment. And I believe that that's actually, we can make it as a checklist
Yes,
gitu ya, Pak,
yes,
later.
of course.
So perhaps have we done this one, okay, to our formative assessment, and that's a really great insight. Thank you, Bapak. So now, okay, before we go to our next session, we have actually the question and answer session, okay? So now it is time for Bapak Ibu to ask anything to Mr. Wahya, especially about the assessment, the formative assessment. Okay, so if you have any question, you can raise your hand, or you can simply chat or simply type on the chat box. Can I guess, Bapak Ibu on Zoom? On YouTube, you also can ask anyway. I can read it for you. Okay, so Pak Wahya, okay. Oh, there is Ibu Ida. Yeah, asking on our chat box. She said some teachers are still confused about scoring. Could you give example how to do that? Okay, perhaps Ibu Ida, are you here? Ibu Ida.
Hello, Ida.
Perhaps Ibu Ida can help me to open up your microphone so we can discuss, Ibu. Hello, Ibu Ida.
Hi.
Okay.
Let me stressing at my questions. Okay, as a headmaster, sometimes my teacher asks me about how score. For example, we know that when the assessment right now in a differentiated class, we can ask the students like to do product or doing something that they can, and based on their willing or their talent, right? So the problems coming, how could the teacher, let's say, score them? Should they do in like informative, for example, in written test, it's easy, right? Because we have question, we have answer, correct or wrong.
Yes, agree.
Yeah? But in performings and product, of course, it like, well, how could we standardize every students with the same aim of study? That's my question.
Yeah. Okay, Ibu. Thank you so much. Ibu Ida already asked about all of the insecurity and also the things that all teachers have, gitu ya, Bu. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ida. It's
Okay.
a good question. Well, yeah, I think it's not only 1 or 2 teachers that have question like that, and actually, yeah, sometimes it is quite confusing, yeah, with the problem in scoring. But don't forget that we should first make a kind of instrument, test instrument. We must see some aspect of the product that we can evaluate. Yeah. For example, if the product is about, let's say, about writing, yeah, about essay. Now, of course, first we could see about the diction, the use of words, and then the structure, something like that. So we must give some what we call categories. I mean, in scoring, how many score that you allocate for content, for example, and then use of language, and then the systematica of writing, something like that. So before giving the score, first of all, we need to make, or we have to fix about the instrument with that. Yeah, gimana Bida?
Okay.
Yeah,
Now I
like,
guess.
you know that, so every every aspect of English has a different rubric, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if we give them writing for whole students, it will be the same. We have the same rubric of writing.
Yeah.
So if we have different kind of product, of course we will also apply different rubric of assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah. For example, okay, this group only focus on how they deliver their speech. So I will use the speech rubric, right? But in different group, maybe this group will create a product. So I also ask the teacher to create the rubric of the product, but the standard will be the same. Is that like that?
Yeah, that's it. So first of all, you have to prepare the rubric of scoring, and then after that, for the superior students, of course, you can also give a kind of more challenging activity, something like that. So for the standard one, what is the evaluation use, and then for the superior, now you can choose another more challenging activities, something like that.
Yeah. So is that okay even if we use different rubric of assessment, even if the aim of study is the same, right?
Yes, but I mean like this. For the similar activities, I think the rubric will be the same.
Yeah.
But if, for example, you offer more challenging activities, of course, and not only, I think not many students can do that activity.
True. Okay. Thank you. All right. I guess that's a really great discussion. Thank you so much, Ibu Ida, for bringing up that issue. Okay. All right. Now, I guess, there is also in our chat box, Pak Nerlan or Ibu Nerlan said it is called rubric assessment. Yes, I believe that's what we need to prepare, I guess, yeah. Okay. So now, the things that we have discussed, Pak Wahya, with Ibu Ida as well, that's when we differentiate the product of our assessment, I guess, right? Because we also can differentiate it as well. Differentiate the product, not only the process, gitu ya. Okay, now I think we still can have a session, the question and answer session. Okay, I still open that one for 1 or 2 questions. Okay, now let me check on our chat box. All right. Okay, so on our chat box, it is oh yes. Good. So, any question from Bapak Ibu? Okay? Mungkin bisa, anyway, that's okay if you ask that in bahasa Indonesia or you can mix it, okay? Asal jangan kayak bahasa daerah. For example, I do not understand some, okay? All right. So please, if Bapak Ibu have more question, ada Ibu Eva di sini. Okay, all right. So, Bapak, let me clarify this one. So, when you have what is that presented or have a formative assessment to your students, okay,
Yeah.
is there any challenge from for you, especially when the student said, yeah, tes lagi? Is it common comment of your students or not actually, Pak? How is it?
Yes, I think some students will, say something like that. But as long as the students are quite good, I mean, for those who usually achieve better score than the others, I usually will try to give them more difficult challenge than the others, something like that. But if, for example, just the student who are in average, I think I will try to accompany them to see again about the difficulty that they have, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so that is why you said that formative assessment shouldn't have a high risk. Means that kayak tidak perlu terlalu susah banget gitu ya Pak ya for some students.
Yeah.
Jadinya,
Yeah.
okay, that makes sense. Okay, alright. Now we know that, right? Okay, mungkin seperti Mr. Wahya tadi juga also stated, we can make it not in the form of test gitu ya Pak ya ternyata. That also can be like fun assessment. Yeah. Okay, so how is your students respond when you have some kind of gamification, Kahoot, for example?
Yeah.
Do they know that they actually have a task?
Yeah, some students know because it is related with the material, right? Except if we use Kahoot for what we call just slid in or ice breaking.
Oh,
But
okay.
if it is used for the formative test, of course they know, although they do it with fun.
Yeah, because it is related to the lesson and they know
Yeah.
it gitu ya Pak.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so I mean like we cannot hide it from them because it is related. So I know it's a task.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So now there is I guess there is a question from Bapak or Ibu Nerlan. Okay, so you actually can help me to Miss Nerlan. Hello, Miss Nerlan. Okay. Okay, Miss Nerlan. Anyway, where are you from?
I'm from Kupang, East Nusa Tenggara.
Oh, okay. Hello.
Hello.
From Kupang.
Nice to
Okay.
meet you.
Yeah, nice to see you, Miss. So you can ask now to Mr. Wahya, please.
All right. This is actually what is happening in my school. So we are in higher school, senior high school. Every semester we have like PAT and PAS.
Yeah.
And all of them, we conduct them into projects. They do like, they make podcasts, they conduct video documentaries and speech and sort of things. Every student has to choose one project for their PAT or PAS. But as I see the progress so far, it is so good for their skill to edit videos, to record themselves and to make video documentaries and sort of things. But I also consider since they have to do the SNBPT test to, apply to the campus, which means they need theory, which we do not apply into our schools.
Yeah.
Since actually PAT dan PAS itu kan, it is important for them to evaluate all of the lessons that they have learned. So that is the thing. I'm asking actually for the suggestion, what we as the school teachers do to at least help them. They do the projects, but also get the points. What should we do? So, they also understand the lessons and sort of things to prepare themselves to the university entrance when they are going to, the university application they are going to apply to campus. That is my question, if that is understandable.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much, Miss Nerlan. All right. Is it your nickname? How should I call you anyway? Okay.
Nerlan.
Nerlan.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Nerlan. Okay. So, Mr. Wahya, it's about balance. Yeah, it's about balancing about regarding their objectives, learning objectives, and also the SNBTN, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So how is it? Okay. Thank you.
Wow, it's a hard question actually, because I think if we talk about the project that you have carry out, I think it is a good one. But then when you mention about the relation with how can you help the students to enter the public university, I don't have any idea. I think in this case, the teacher from BK, that know more about that. I'm
Okay.
sorry, but
Yeah. Okay,
help me.
but that's great, Bapak. I mean, like, we can collaborate with other teachers. That's what
Yeah.
you mean about the things, right? Talk to the BK, BK teacher, and then ask about the consultation about the task and how the test. That's really one of the things that we can do, because sometimes as a teacher we cannot handle all of the things like by
Yeah, that's
ourselves.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's why collaborate to others. That's
Yeah.
really one the point, Miss Nerlan. Okay, thank you, Mr. Wahya, for the insight, and also the what is that? Finally, we know that there is also collaborative things in assessment, I guess.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Miss Nerlan. Okay, good. So, that's the things about what is that? The task later for the students gitu ya Pak. Kalau misalnya if they want to after they graduate from high school, they're going to have that test to enter the university. That's another thing. And I guess they have different, sangat berbeda sekali the things materinya gitu ya Pak ya, dari yang dipelajarin, maksudnya dari yang learning objective itself gitu ya. And perhaps by having the collaboration, it can help. Okay. Okay, Mr. Wahya. Now, my last question.
Yes.
Okay, it is about the keywords. Okay. I guess Pak Shamsuddin. Okay, I'm so sorry because it is actually the end of our second session. We have to move on. Okay, but now we are going to have the keywords of our first session today, Mr. Wahya. What is that?
My keyword is actually fun assessment.
Okay, fun assessment. Okay, why is it fun assessment, Pak?
Yeah, because once again, in the principle that I told you, don't give the student a high risk assessment. Yeah, so they still can enjoy the learning, although they are doing the assessment.
Okay, that's the point. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Wahya, for our
You're very
today's insight. Okay, I believe that the teacher will now make sure and have a checklist of the things that they have to do on their formative assessment. Okay, we are going to see you again on our photo group. Okay, big applause to Mr. Wahya. Okay, it's like a virtual applause anyway. Thank you so much, Bapak. Okay, all right. So now, Bapak Ibu, I would like to remind you again that today we are going to have the attendance list, the present list that I am going to share later at the end of the session. Okay, so make sure that you fill it before you leave our Zoom and also our YouTube. Okay, so now before we go to the second session, another things. Okay, the first keyword for today, yeah, that is fun assessment. Okay, now let's watch the following video before we have another session.
DM Tanjung Duren Selatan 01. Menurut saya, dari buku dan juga LMS produknya Atlaz, itu dia mengakomodir learning style anak-anak. Jadi, buat sekolah yang punya variasi anak-anak terkait learning style-nya, ada yang visual, ada yang audio, ataupun yang kinestetik, ini sangat terbantu banget. Terutama untuk anak-anak visual dengan ilustrasi bukunya yang tentunya bagus banget, gitu ya. Yang kedua, anak-anak kinestetik yang mana di dalam teacher source-nya atau teacher's note-nya itu dia menyediakan berbagai macam inspirasi games yang bisa ngebuat anak bergerak. Jadi menurut saya buku ini pas banget buat guru-guru yang mau mengakomodir berbagai macam learning style-nya peserta didik. Seperti itu. Yuk teman-teman pendidik, kita gunakan buku dan juga LMS dari Atlaz karena buku ini dan juga LMS-nya sudah cukup mengakomodir bukan hanya dari learning style tapi juga sudah sesuai dengan berbagai macam kurikulum, buat yang pakai Cambridge bisa, buat yang pakai ID bisa, maupun yang kurikulum merdeka.
All right, so that's one of the things that we have on our bedah buku. Okay, so before we have it, we actually have some kind of review, and also assessment for our book. So yeah, that's from Miss Mia. Okay, now I also would like to remind you that today, if you want to if you want to have an experience, okay, and also you want to provide meaningful experiences in your teaching for your students, Atlaz is now offering you 50% promo for purchasing Atlaz on Shopee. Jadi bisa dibeli melalui Shopee. Nanti kode promonya bisa dimasukkan di kode tokonya Atlaz 0901. Okay, I will demonstrate the use of the code later at the end of the session. So hopefully it will make you it will make you have a more meaningful and inspiring session to your students. Okay, so now without any further ado, I would like to start our second session with the second speaker. Yes, okay, we have Mr. Kevin. Hi, Mr. Kevin.
Hello again, Miss Nadia.
Okay.
Can you hear my voice?
Yes, it's clear anyway. So, Mr. Kevin, without any further ado, please, it's your time.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Nadia. So I think I'll try to share my screen now. I hope it's working well for all of you. Can you give a thumbs up if you can see my screen?
That's good, Bapak.
Good. All right, very nice. So I think there's still an ongoing chat, I think, still ongoing from what Mr. Ron has said earlier. I actually want to say something a little bit about like a follow-up answer, I would say, like from what Buida has asked and also Ms. Nerlan. So I think like Buida was asking a little bit about the grading system, right? We will see later in the slides how important actually the grading is or how not so important it is, right? So we have to really think about the essence of the grading itself for formative assessment because it is slightly, or I would say it's a lot different than our conventional way of grading or assessing students. And for Ms. Nerland, if I may probably suggest, right? So I think like there has been like some confusion with like, okay, I have to deliver the theory, the students have to understand the theory, but I also have to do it this way so it's more engaging to the students and things like that. I think my what I've always been telling my teachers that I'm developing is to always focus on the function. So number one is always the function. So not really on the grammar or vocabulary, because that all comes as building blocks for the function. So really, for example, let's say, what is your purpose for today, right? So let's say maybe in terms of the theory, you really want to teach students how to use, maybe this is B2, right? So maybe third conditional. So in third conditional, then the students need to be able to use it for telling regrets, right? So if I didn't have that, I would have done it differently, whatever that is, right? So then the grammar comes afterwards, but you really want the students to understand that, scaffold first, right? So set up the foundation that today we'll be talking about regrets. So have you had any regrets in your life? And then you can do some sort of discovering activities, even projects, right? And then you can start tapping into the formula. So here actually is a formula for telling regrets using something called third conditional, right? That you dissect it little by little. So for example, to build third conditionals, you need to have full understanding of the past tense as well as the past participle, for example, right? Then you review everything, then towards the end, then you assess again using this formative assessment. At the end of the day, then you are able to assess whether the students fully understood the lesson, right? So not just actually enjoying the activity that we brought to class, right? But also to be able to use the function using the grammar that we were teaching in class. So that's one way of doing it. And the other one, this is also related to what Luida asked as well. So let's say we want to assess their reading or listening or some grammar and vocabulary. So it's a bit different than speaking and writing when we have specific rubrics, right? So for these ones, you can go into deeper sub-skills. So don't just go to like reading, I want to assess reading today, but what is it in reading that you want to assess, right? So reading, we have skimming, we have scanning, we have intensive reading, so reading for details. So really understand what that is that you want to assess first. Then at the end of the day, you are able to set up like your own rubric perfectly, right? So it's not too broad, because if it's too broad, then yeah, I think it's a bit hard for the teachers to try to make their own rubric, because like, okay, what am I actually assessing today, right? So it's more tailored towards each of your class with different sets of students. So yeah, I think that's just a little bit of premise. Hopefully that's sort of answered.
Okay, so Mr. Kevin,
Yes.
I think I have to cut you for a moment because
Sure.
Mr. Wahya will go because he has to
Yes.
go back to school. I guess we can have a photo.
Yes, we can have the photo session first.
Yeah,
Yes.
because while Mr.
Perfect.
Wahya is going.
I haven't even started, so that's good.
Okay, so yes, thank you. Nah, Bapak Ibu, please open up your camera if you want to have the photo with Mr. Wahya and Mr. Kevin as well. Okay, so I will take a picture with you. All right. Now in 3, 2, 1, and okay, go. Nice. Okay, I can see a really bright smile from Bapak Ibu here. Okay. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Now, I guess, Mr. Wahya, thank you so much for giving us many insightful things today. Have a nice day. We are going to meet again soon. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wahya. Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. Now, I will give it back to Mr. Kevin, please.
All right, thank you so much. And thanks again, Mr. Wahya. It was very, very insightful and informative. I have taken a lot of notes myself that I've learned from you. So good luck with everything. See you next time. All right, so I'll go back to my slides. So let's go to the first one. Well, just a little bit of background. So if you were here last week, I probably have seen you before, but if you haven't, then this is sort of my profile, right? Like who I am. So I graduated from a university called USC, right? That's in Los Angeles, California. And I stayed in America for roughly 8 years. So I was there for 8 years. And my current role right now, I am an academic manager at an English institution. And I've been teaching English since 2018, and I've been in charge of developing teachers and also my academic team and the quality. And I've been teaching students from the age of 3 years old all the way to adults. So what I'm bringing to you today, hopefully, it will be beneficial for teachers for all ages, right? So not just for the elementary teachers, but also for middle schoolers and also high schoolers. All right, so probably the first thing that we want to see, right? So when we're talking about tests, right? The word test itself is quite stressful, as Mr. Wahya has mentioned previously, right? So you can see the pictures there. This is the first thing that comes to most students' minds, right? So we cannot omit this. So students probably are thinking, not again, the daily quiz, again, what? Another quiz with Ms. Nerlan? Didn't we have a quiz last time, right? Students are always thinking that way, right? I haven't studied for it. What if I get a bad grade, right? Number 3B, number 4. So I guess that's sort of like cheating, right? Or I'm scared that I won't do well. So I think the common perception for tests is that it's always very scary and it is not something that they are looking forward to, right? And on the other hand, for us as a teachers as well, right, it is also stressful. So I think that's sort of why our Minister of Education, right, changed the curriculum to change this stereotype, right, this generalization that tests are scary or tests are quite troublesome, right? For the teachers, we can see here. So the teachers' common problems are, how should I make the test? We does questions previously, right? The teachers are asking, what about the rubric? I have to prepare the rubric, right? So it's a lot of things to prepare, or maybe the pressure from the parents, right? Themselves, like they want the students to get good grades, or they will judge the teachers saying like, oh, this teacher is good, that teacher is not good just because of the result that the students are getting from the test, right? It's a lot of mental and also physical and time pressure for a lot of teachers. So these are the problems, right? Students are terrified of any kind of test. Students are really pressured to perform well on every test. Teachers need to create questions that review the lessons. Teachers are overwhelmed with papers to grade. So these are the premises. So to think about the solution, right? So we need to think first. Why do we test our students? So I think Mr. Wahya has already mentioned earlier in his slides, right? So we need to understand like their knowledge first, right? And also like what should we know more about like what they are comprehending from our lessons, and also the learning itself. So that was like the K, W, and L, right? So we can't really, we have to go back there again, right? To this like basic fundamentals. And also another thing that we need to think, right? How important is scoring in a formative assessment? So if we take a look at the website from Kemendikbud itself, we can actually see that the grading itself is not as important in formative assessments as it is in summative assessments. So since like today we're talking about formative, right? Not summative, but we need to take a look at both actually to be able to distinguish the difference and what to actually prepare for each one of them. So this is from the website itself, right? You can see like on the left side there, you can have a read on your own, right? That's for formative. The one on the right side is for summative. So for formative, you can actually see, right? It's actually us assessing students for observing, right? To fix the way that we are teaching as well. So there is actually a lot of self-reflection for the teachers. So if anything, the formative is more directed towards the teachers than it is to the students. So then we actually see how well we're bringing the materials to class, how well we're actually scaffolding and also tailoring each of our materials towards the lesson aim so that the students are able to grasp the aims at the end. For the summative, this is, I would say, the more conventional, right? The more traditional way of doing tests, because it's supposed to be at the end of the term, right? Or the course, maybe at the end of the semester as well, right? So that the students are able to achieve all the learning objectives. So in the capaian pembelajaran, right, in the CP, And that's also as a determiner whether the students can pass to the next grade or not. So it's more formal by definition as well. So formative is, even though the word itself is form, but it's not actually formal. If anything, it's actually more informal. It's more ongoing. The summative is more formal, and it's it's quite serious, right? So when it comes to summative. But today we'll be talking about the formative only. So this is the way we are dividing formative assessments, basically like what we need to get from our assessments. So before we're actually thinking about what activities we want to do, right, to assess, we need to think first, right? So how far can the students comprehend the materials? So the first one is monitor or to gauge, right? So the same thing as diagnostic tests. We talked about it last week. For diagnostic tests, we didn't have any prior information about the students, but now we actually do. So from the diagnostic test, we kind of have some information. So we want to see the progress, right? So we gauge again. So let's say last week, I gave an example about past tense. Let's say this week we're talking about conditionals, right? So using the word if itself. Can the students actually use it now that I've been teaching them for maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks just to see what I've been preparing for them? Is it effective enough? Then the second one, the improvement part, right? So what are some common mistakes that students make? So then let's say when we're talking about first conditional, if I don't go to sleep today, I will not wake up early tomorrow. Maybe the students are still missing the word will. I wake up late tomorrow. That's a very common Indonesian mistake, right? So they forget the modal verbs, for example. So then you can actually revisit that again, right, for the whole structure itself and focus on just that specific mistake instead of having to review and revisit everything from the beginning again, right? So it's more targeted. Similar to the diagnostic test that we talked about last week, right? We're not going to go over every single thing because if, let's say, the students are only having difficulties in certain areas, then we should focus on those first instead of the other ones that they don't really have any problems on. Then the last one is to evaluate, right? So how close are the students to reaching their learning objectives? So basically preparing them for the summative exam at the end, right? The summative assessment itself. So what else can I do as a teacher to support them in achieving that goal? So we have to have this mindset first before we're even, I would say, creating the assessment for the students. So to make effective formative assessments, the first thing that you really want to see in your assessment itself is to have clear objectives. So go back to your CP, CP, right? So what is it that you're trying to achieve at the end of the course itself? So it's to help students to understand what they are doing and what they need to focus on. The second one is use various techniques, right? So as Mr. Wahid has mentioned earlier, I will show you how the Atlaz books are doing the formative assessment, actually providing them in the LMS as well as in the book itself, right? So through quizzes, having speaking assessment or writing assignments to provide a more holistic view of the student's understanding, right? So we don't only assess students to be able to answer yes, no, correct, or incorrect, but actually getting deeper. Are they actually able to produce, not just understanding, right? Especially we're English teachers, right? So we don't want students to just be able to be good at exams, but they're not able to actually use the language to speak, to communicate with other people. And the third one, the timely feedback, right? So immediately after the assessments, because we don't want the students to forget as much as we forget as well, right? So they know what they do well and what they need to improve on. So the timely feedback is really crucial as well. And the last one is active participation and deciding what you're going to do after the test. So this is, Mr. Wayu has also mentioned it previously, right? So let's say we're giving students time to do discussion. We're having group discussion. So as teachers, we shouldn't really be leaving the room, right? Let them discuss by themselves, but we're actually assessing them. Are they able to use it? Or which students are still being quiet, not able to produce, or they might not understand at all, right? So this is also related to what Ms. Nadia mentioned earlier, but differentiation, right? Which is really booming right now, right? So being able to differentiate each of the student, passive or active, but now we're getting more, not just passive and active, but the ones in the middle, right? That's maybe good at reading, but not good at writing, or good at speaking, but not good at writing at all. So you need to be able to distinguish your students that way as well. All right, so that's enough, I would say, like of the theory, the mindset that we should have, right, of the assessment itself. So this one, this is from Atlaz book itself. So I took it, so just you can see like how it looks like, or maybe if you haven't been using Atlaz books themselves, it should give you some ideas what you can do in class, right, or what not to do, maybe if that's something that you're learning here as well. But let's try this. So I think there are at least 5 different skills that are being asked for each of the assessment. And feel free to answer. You can unmute yourself or you can answer in the chat box as well. I will give you some time for each one. I would like you to think about how you would design your own formative assessment if you were the teacher teaching the specific class, right? Okay, so let's take a look at the first one. So this is reading activities, right? So let's take a look. We have a reading text on the left side there. So it seems like it's bringing items to a concert, right? What not to bring, what can we bring to concert? And then we have some posters, right? Things like that. So I'll give you some time, maybe like 1 minute. Just try to think, right? Let's say if you're being asked to teach this to the student and you need to assess them formatively, right? So we're not talking about summative, just formatively to understand whether students understood your lesson or not. How would you design your test?
Okay, so Bapak Ibu, yes. Okay, they are actually typing, I guess. All right. We'll give you some minutes, some seconds, perhaps.
Okay, just maybe 15 more seconds. We'll see. Miss Nadia, I think there's one person having an issue seeing it. Maybe you can help.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, all right. Thank
All
you.
right. I think the rest can still type if you wish to type, but I'll just give some examples, right? So from the Atlas LMS itself. So these are some things that you can do, right? So to make it more relevant to the students themselves, right? So let's say you were asking them to read previously, right? So reading, a lot of students find it not as interesting as the other skills, right? So you have to make it more interesting. So you have to relate to what students like doing first. So you can see the first one there, right? So read the dialogue. So why don't you make your own, maybe chat with somebody else in English, and you ask the students to read, right? And you can ask them to maybe do a mini role play, right? So asking them to be like, okay, so based on reading this, like what is the mood of the student, right? Or maybe what's the mood of the person typing it? How would you say it, right? So maybe I will be the green one, Miss Nadia will be the gray one, for example, like that, right? So one will be Nick, one will be Omar. So that's also fun, right? Because we're actually getting into a real life activity instead of just like passively reading. So reading itself is a receptive skill, right? So reading and listening is, they are receptive, but we don't have to make the activities as passive as they sound, right? We can still make the activities active. So that's one way of doing it. Or let's say true or false question, right? You can get them into like form groups or in pairs, right? See, or maybe do like a survey. So things like that, get it active, right? Again, it doesn't have to be written. It can be something that's they're doing outside or even in class, but they're moving, right? And multiple choice. And there's also something in the LMS called the autocorrection. So basically, if they're doing this in the Atlaz website itself, it's already auto-corrected for them. So as teachers, we don't actually have to grade anymore. So that's actually helpful for some teachers who are quite confused, right? How do we grade this? So we don't actually have to grade them because they're not going to be in the report cards. But just in case we need to have some records, right? In terms of like how well they're doing in class, then we can actually have the grades there. Okay, next one. Grammar. Okay, so not a lot of people are fond of grammar. I am a big grammar Nazi myself. I love grammar, but I know a lot of my students don't like grammar. So then how do I make it interesting, let's say in my class, right? So you can still write down what you think you would do, right? In the chat box. I'll give some time. So I'm gonna read, and I think Ms. Naran mentioned informal letter, ask the students to make and send letters to their friends about their celebration, birthday party, etc. At the end, their friends will come to attend the party they're holding. For itself, the students will set the script. So basically, this is like a drum performance, but preparation takes time. Yep, very, very nice, right? So that's good. Informal letter, that's one way of making it active, right? So students actually are producing, they're making the letters actually, even though this is a reading activity, because we're actually using both writing and their friends have to actually read what they write, right? So that's really, really nice. Good job, Ms. Naran, very, very nice. And let the students arrange sentence using the model. Yes, very nice, Mr. Basuki. That's really good as well, right? So maybe unscrambling, right? As simple as that, or maybe arrange or make their own sentences. You can create some context. Very, very nice. So yeah, everybody can keep writing. I'll just keep going so we are not losing time. So this is another example from Atlaz itself, right? So let's say we can make dialogues. So again, a lot of activities involving students speaking or students writing, right? Even from grammar itself, we can ask them to make the dialogues using the grammar that they just used, right? Making plan, and then at the end of the day, they can do the role play. So similar to what Ms. Naran mentioned earlier, right? About writing the informal letter, but this one is more about creating a dialogue themselves. So it's more control, I would say, to practice, but it's also quite effective. You can do it that way too. All right, and the next one, let's see. Okay, listening, right? Another passive one. So let's take a look here. So for example, we're asking the students to listen, right? So to an audio or to a video, so to a song, right? So songs are actually very good, especially if you're teaching teenagers or high schoolers, because that actually is how we're making it relevant to their real life, right? So we're not actually just making hypothetical situations, but making it real, because teenagers like us to relate to how they are facing their problems in life or what they like at the moment, right? So we can still engage their enthusiasm, right? Something that was also mentioned earlier. So use something that they're actually facing in real life. So let's see, anything else? Yes, students answer the questions based on the audio. Yes, yeah, exactly. So to keep that engaging. One thing that I would suggest when it comes to listening, you really want to make sure that the students have a listening strategy, right? So a lot of the common mistakes that I think, especially new teachers, when it comes to learning how to teach listening, they're asking the students to just, okay, so you listen and you write down the answers, right? So that's basically how it is. But listening strategy is similar to what I mentioned about reading. So reading, that's reading for gist, skimming, scanning, intensive reading. For listening, it's the same thing too, right? So are you asking them to listen for the overall general audio or general conversation, discussion, or do you want the students to actually scan for specific information within specific time frame, right? Then you're asking them to analyze the questions themselves. For example, in section D, you can see, right? Listen carefully and answer the questions. Number one, what does Omar suggest to Nick for Maya's birthday present, right? So you're asking the students to read the question first. What do you think this is asking you to do? How can you answer this question? Are you listening for just, or do you have to listen specifically for this one? Then if it's listening for specific information, then you need to underline the keyword. What is the most important part, right? What is that keyword that you want to listen to so you know that you can get that answer from that specific keyword in the listening itself? And this is especially useful when you get into higher levels, especially if you're teaching TOEFL or IELTS in the future. Maybe your high schoolers will get there, right? So because that is all the skills that they need to acquire, right? They need to start being able to identify which kind of strategy they need to use. So here, these are some things, right? Some suggestions what you can do for listening, review, and assessment. So the audio format and the dialogue and monologue. And also, since we're talking about differentiation, right? So we have students, let's say in your class that are struggling. We have some students that are superior, what Mr. Wahya said earlier, right? We have some that actually understand well, but not too well. Some of them are in the middle. So you can also use something called the audio transcript, right? So to provide some supplementary for them. So supplementary material. So, for example, these students are still struggling to understand fast speech. So that way, when they're actually listening, you're giving them the transcript so they can follow along. So that is just supported at the beginning. Later on, maybe you ask them to listen again, this time without reading the transcript. So you're training their listening skills as well, right? And then there's also true or false questions and also the autocorrection. So similar to the reading that we saw earlier. Oh, yes. I think this is from Mr. or Ms. Zohaya. I think Ms. Nadia will share the materials later. And let's go to the next one first. So speaking activities. So speaking, I would say this is probably not the hardest one, especially for English teachers, because we can focus a lot on speaking, right? But let's take a look. Type in some more. What would you do in this case, right? So take a look on the left side, look at the following pictures of museum rules, write down the meaning of each picture, right? And there's also write questions for the mini dialogues and give them suggestions. So what would you do? What is your formative test? What would it be like? Okay, but I'll just keep going first. So type in your idea, right? So these are some things that the LMS provides as well, right? So for example, instead of asking students to always answer, why don't you ask them to make the questions, right? So maybe the focus is to actually formulate WH questions for today. So why don't you ask them to write the questions? You can give them the answers, right? And for speaking assessment, it doesn't really have to actually be individual all the time. You can actually have it in group discussion as well, set them in pairs, right? To make it more fun. And doesn't have to be like teacher to student all the time. So something that you can think about in the interaction pattern is maybe you can make it into student to student as well, right? Or students to students as well, groups to groups. They can have like group debates or maybe responding to presentation. Something I really like doing is when I'm assigning a student to, let's say, give a presentation, I would ask the rest to always prepare for questions because I don't want students to be passive in class and not doing anything because that defeats the purpose, right? So you kind of have to force them a little bit, right? So at least from one person each, right? In the class, they prepare a question, or maybe you set them in pairs or in groups, whatever it is. But at least when it comes to them listening to the person speaking, they have to be actively listening, right? Not passively listening. And the rubrics, this is actually from the LMS itself. It's actually already there. You can see on the right side there, right? The model for the students' answers. What are the rules? Maybe some of the model sentences can be like, I have to be home by 6 p.m. I can't go home without asking my parents' permission and so on. And the rubric is in the bottom, right? So usually for speaking rubric, it's similar to writing. We'll see it later. There are 4 different or 5 different ways that you can rate them, right? Maybe like they're able to, or they're developing, they're good enough, they are sufficient, or they are proficient, right? If they're already able to tackle all those points. So that's kind of like how you can grade them in terms of their speaking for formative assessment. Is there anything else? Oh, yeah, there's actually a question related to the speaking from, yes, Mr. Zohaya. Actually, I want to make my students speak up by telling story. Yes, of course. So for telling story, it depends on your students' skills first, right? How are their speaking skills? If you know their CFR level, let's say they A1, A2, or B1 or B2. So let's say we have a student, a group of students that are still in their A2. So A2, they're able to have like basic simple phrases, right? So basic conversations. So maybe you can guide them a little bit with some visual aids, so visual cues. So you can ask them to prepare some pictures first instead of asking them to be in front and tell a story, because some people they get really nervous with telling stories, right? So ask them to find some pictures, right? So you can use Google, right? Or you can be the one providing the pictures to them as well. But visual cues always help, right? And as well as some guiding questions. So we know some students, let's say when they're A2 or A1, they're not able to formulate their own, free writing yet. So you have to provide them some questions. For example, who are the characters in the story and what is character one like? What is the beginning introduction? What happens in the middle? What happens at the end? So that's usually what I do. And again, it depends on the age groups, right? So if I'm teaching, let's say elementary students, I would ask them first of these basic questions. But let's say I'm teaching high schoolers, then of course, in each of these, I want to elaborate more, right? So what is the character like? What is their attitude, right? What's their personality? Are they an extrovert, introvert? Are they logical, or are they sad or melancholic, right? So use these adjectives to help them a little bit. So you have to support them first before actually asking them to tell the story, because some students are not able to. Yes, that's right, Mr. Shamsuddin. It's leading question, or you can also prompt, right? You can provide some prompts. So how would you say this? How would you say that, right? And give some prompts. Okay, I hope that answers for now. Let me continue first. So I think this is the last skill, right? In terms of writing activities. So you can also type in the chat box if you think of some ways how you would want to create some activity for writing. So for example, like this, pair up, suggest some new rules in your school, make changes to the existing rules. So something that I also like doing, and some of my teachers like doing as well, is have little teachers. That's what we call students in class that are quite superior, and they're able to help you in class. So you can make them teacher assistants actually, right? So because they might be like, Mr. or Miss, I have learned this before. This is so easy, but I have to learn it, right? So we have some students like that. Why don't you ask them to actually be helping you in the front, right? So you can ask them to be the one like facilitating. So that is helpful as well in this case, and make it also relatable if you're teaching teenagers, right? So what are the do's and don'ts here? Let's say for class rules. So have them create their own class rules, what they agree on. Can we use our phones? When can we use them if we have to use them, and such and such. Or let's say creating online announcement for new rules. How would you add the pictures? You can also do that as well. So type in the chat box. I'll continue to the next slide here. Oops, there you go. Okay, so something that we can also do, if you remembered earlier, let's say from the listening, right? From the listening, we have like some songs, make it more relatable, and also some text for reading, right? For the chat, let's say we're having a WhatsApp chat with our friends, but in English, we ask them to read, right? For writing, you can do the same, right? So for writing, why don't you ask the students to create chat as if they're chatting with their friends, but actually in English? We actually had a teacher in my company previously that had used this before, that had like this WhatsApp group, right? And asked them to actually ask each other questions in English. That's actually one very fun way to do it. And then we actually review it the next day, right? So let's say, oh, there is a grammar mistake. What's the grammar mistake there, right? So to make it more fun, we're actually correcting errors as well as we're doing that, right? And you can also be more creative when it comes to writing. Especially writing is tedious, right? So we have to pay attention to a lot of things. There's punctuation, capitalization, things like that. But why don't we make it more fun by, let's say, let's focus on writing for social media posts, why don't you make a post about what we're learning today, right? Or maybe why don't you write a post for your last vacation? Let's say you're posting online. Have you ever posted in English on Instagram, right? So imagine you're going to post it. Even you can ask them to actually post it if they actually have their own Instagram account, right? To make it more fun. So it doesn't have to be like sitting down and writing essays. That's not the only way to do it, right? Maybe for summative, yes, but for formative, you can make it fun, right? So that way you can also see how well they're actually doing it. So yeah, in writing as well, you can see there's the rubric there, right? Similar to the speaking, there are like 4 different categories that you can take a look by yourself. All right, so I guess like I've covered like most of the skills that we are usually assessing formatively. The conclusion here, you can read it as well, right? So formative assessments should be holistic and low stake, as Mr. Wahya mentioned earlier, right? To ensure students have the knowledge, the skills, and the confidence they need to reach the learning objectives. So that is the most important part, is also for our self-reflection, right? How well we're actually bringing the lesson to class. Are they able to comprehend it? Are they able to use it? So again, going back to the function I mentioned to Ms. Nurlan earlier, right? So the function, let's say we're learning the grammar point today, but are they actually able to use it to actually produce the sentences using the specific function? If not, that means we have to go back maybe to the function. Or maybe they're able to do the function already, but their grammar is still pretty inaccurate. So that means you don't have to spend too much time on fixing the function, but more on the grammar itself. So that's how it's going to be helpful for you. So you can also save time instead of you having to review every single thing, right? So you really tackle down into each of the things that the students need to learn from you. Okay, I think that is pretty much it from me. I'll give it back to Ms. Nadia. Thank you so much for listening to me. I think we'll open some question sessions after this, Ms. Nadia.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Kevin. That's a really thoughtful one and also inspiring one. So now I guess we're going to move on to our next session. It is a question and answer session. Okay. I really love the way Mr. Kevin already given us some practical things for all skills in the assessment, okay, on the formative assessment, okay, so that later on, Bapak Ibu, you also can apply this one into your classroom, hopefully, yeah. Okay, so now, if you have any question, please let us know. Okay, so actually here, Ibu Johaya already asked, okay. I want to make my students speak up by telling story. Do you know how? And Mr. Kevin actually already answered that one in the what is that, in the explanation, during the explanation. And thank you. So now I would like. Oh, there's also some. What is that? Okay, comments on our YouTube, Mr. Kevin. It is stated that Pahotran said, Mr. Kevin, your explanation is clear. Since it is in English, perhaps it makes Mr. Hotran more concentrated.
Oh, that's good. So that's my purpose, right? So everybody pays more attention, has to focus, right?
Yes. So that's also the things that we can apply in our classroom anyway, right?
Exactly. So that's I call it a full immersion technique, right? So by using it all the time, then we're actually allowing the students to practice.
Yeah, to expose them more in English as
exactly.
well. Okay. So now, Bapak Ibu, if you have any question, please you can raise your hand, or you also can can ask on our chat box. Okay, I believe that if there's no one ask question, means that it is pretty clear. Okay, so if you think that it is crystal clear for you and you are ready to implement that one in your classroom, please give me any sign. Okay, give me an emoji. Okay, I am now doing the formative assessment to you. Okay. You can try to raise your hand, or okay, so or anything such as the reaction. Okay, the heart emoji or anything. So tell me. Okay. All right. Okay. So there's no emoji means that. Oh, thank you, Miss Jaya. Thank you, Miss Narla. Miss Nerla, yeah, okay. Pak Samsudin, it's a thumb up. Ibu Melia Sari, thank you. Okay. Means that it is clear for Ibu Eva, Ibu Sri as well. Okay. Yeah, we are going to share the material of our two speakers anyway, Miss Rosni, that will be shared on and that will be sent on your email. Yeah, later when you fill in the present list, we are going to get it. Okay, so make sure you fill in that one first before you leave that one. Okay. Thank you, Miss Johaya. I also get feedback anyway here, Mr. Kevin. Good
That's good.
moderator. Okay. All right. So then I guess some of you still have what is that? If you haven't given me any emoji here, means that you are still wondering. Okay. Perhaps it is kind of also overwhelming strategies also for the teachers, I believe, because it is not that easy to change our, what is that? Not easy to change our habit, Mr. Kevin. So what do you think? The first thing first that the teacher needs to do after this webinar to what is that? To create and to implement the formative assessment, the meaningful and effective formative assessment.
So I think I might have to copy Mr. Wahya's statement earlier today. So he mentioned about fun assessing, right? Or fun testing. So don't forget the element of fun in your formative assessment. It's not supposed to be scary. It's not supposed to be serious, right? And we're not really focusing on the grading. So we have to change our mindset first. So once we have the right mindset there, it'll be easier. So then it comes naturally to you, especially if you have the teacher's instinct already, right? You know, it's like, oh, I understand that my student needs this help, that help, right? So it builds your antenna as well.
Yes. So yeah, just like what people said, it's actually about the mindset. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not mindset, but mindset. Okay. So then, Mr. Kevin, so after they have find out the fun things, okay. So do you think that have you ever got some kind of, you know, issue when you are implementing the assessment, the formative assessment to your students?
That's actually a very good question. So the issue actually is not from the assessment itself, but it's what to do after the assessment.
Wow.
Because,
okay.
Yeah, because
this is interesting.
It relates back to the differentiation again, right? So when we have, let's say, equally, let's say we have strong students and we have like some students that need support, right? It's quite easy because we only have two variables. But let's say we have many, right? So we have some students that are very good with reading, one that is a little bit, right, not too good at reading, but one that really needs help with speaking or is not confident at all. So you have to strategize in a way that you're helping everyone at the same time, right? And since like all of you are teaching at school, let's say you're teaching 30 students at the same time, so you really have to create that strategies, and it cannot just be from us, the teachers. We have to use a strategy in a way that the students are actually learning from each other as well. So it's not always just us saying, explaining, but let's have them, let's say, pair the strong one with the weak one so they are able to help each other out. Or let's say if one student is really good with writing and one is actually really good with speaking, why don't you ask the one with good writing to write the dialogue, and the one with good at speaking can do the dialogue afterwards, things like that, right? So you have to strategize.
Okay, so that strategy. Okay, okay. Now I guess there is Pak Basuki who have raised his hand. Okay, hello, Mr. Basuki.
Okay.
Okay, where are you from, Mister?
I'm from Sidoarjo. It's
Okay,
Java.
Sidoarjo.
Yeah.
All right. Please.
Thank you.
Pak
Thank
Basuki.
you for the time. But the problem in our class is we have the problem to make our students speak up because they always say English is not our language or mother tongue. That is how to improve their encourage to speak. That is the problem is not assessment and blah 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 blah. But the problem is our students have the minimized. I'm so sorry. The minimized vocabulary and that is not their habit to speak English.
Yeah.
That is
Okay, okay.
our problem in our especially in suburb school like my school.
Okay, Mr. Basuki, it's understandable. Thank you so much. Actually, yeah, the things that I can say, based on Mr. Basuki's question, the core problem is actually to make them speak up. Okay, so how is it, Mr. Kevin?
That's actually a very, very good question, especially like when we're teaching in Indonesia, right? It's a bit different in Western countries where most of the students are actually already quite active personally, not actually talking about language itself. So the first thing that we want to do is to build their confidence, right? So that means they don't have the confidence to actually speak up. So in order to do that, we need to not focus so much on the rules, not on the grammar, but actually on the sentence structures. So for my students that are really just starting out, let's say I have some high school students that just started learning English for the first time ever, right? So I can't possibly just ask them to speak in English right away. So then I would always give them some sentence structures, so some examples. Then we create the environment for them to be able to use those sentence structures. So for example, let's say today the first lesson ever is just to say greetings. So we provide the sentence structures on the board, right? So hello, my name is Mr. Kevin. I'm 9 years old or whatever, and I go to this school or that school. Then step by step, we can erase some of the words, right? And we ask each of them to actually be using it, right? So they could say like, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. So then they have to fill in the blanks, but without actually us helping them. Then after that, when they are able to do that already, we go for another round. And this round, maybe we try to cover the sentence structures, see if they memorize it, right? And then in the next lesson, we have to review it again. So we have to tackle it one bit at a time before we're actually diving into the rules, the grammar itself, right? So give them the structures first. So understanding how to use it is more important than actually the grammar itself, because grammar will reformulate itself once the students are able to say certain words already.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I believe that it is actually the things that we are trying to do in our classroom to forget about the grammar first at the very beginning, perhaps, Mr. Kevin?
Yeah, so
gitu ya?
yeah, something I if I'm teaching elementary students, so for example, when I'm asking what is it, right, and I always want them to answer it's a pencil, it's an eraser. So instead of just saying pencil, eraser, that's just training them to fill in vocabulary, right? So get them to get used to answering in sentences. That's gonna do wonders.
Yes, that's also the things. They usually answer in a really short answer. Okay, so that is why sometimes many of my students also, their understanding is good. They can listen and get the get the ideas very well, but then when they have to speak or answer it, they go, oh, no, miss, I don't know. It happens. Yeah. Okay. So perhaps we can have those strategy, yeah, Mr. Kevin, to help our students. Actually, they need to help it. They need our help, gitu ya. Okay. All right. So actually, there is still one more question, but then Miss Rusni, I am so sorry, but I think it is 3 minutes left. Okay, I don't think we can answer your question, but do not worry. I already captured the question, and perhaps in our next webinar, we can discuss about it. Okay, good. So I want us to give big round of applause for Mr. Kevin for our today's webinar. But now, before we we move to the last session, Mr. Kevin, do you have any keywords for our today's for the second session?
Yes,
What is
actually
it?
2 words. So
Okay.
holistic approach.
Okay, so the second keyword is holistic approach. Okay, what is that? Oh,
That is actually an overall, or holistic comes from the word whole, right? So we're approaching a student as a whole instead of just one specific thing, right? So we're actually taking a look, and that's kind of like today's formative assessments goal, right? To see like where the students are, how they're progressing, and we're creating some strategies so they can be successful in the future.
Yes, wow. Okay, so our 2 keywords today really present the whole the whole webinars today. The first keyword is fun assessment, and the second keyword is holistic approach. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kevin.
Yes,
Okay,
you're welcome. Thanks for the time.
We can see again on our next meeting. Okay, all right, Bapak Ibu, that's all of our the webinar today. Before we have the present list, okay, I will remind you that today you are going to have, yes, you are going to get a promo. If you want to, if you have taken a look at the Mr. Kevin presentation, you can see that the examples of Mr. Kevin's presentations are actually taken from Atlaz Online Learning and Book. So if you want to experience those activities and apply those activities to your students, it is time for you, because we offer the promo, okay, for today until this Sunday, okay, until 10th September. You're going to get 50% discount if you buy it on Shopee. Okay, so hopefully you can use that opportunity. Okay, so before I give you the present list, okay, let's take a look at to this video first. Okay, I will send the present list after this. Okay. There you go. Okay, so the things that you have seen, that's actually our online learning. That's the thing that you are going to get for free if you buy our book. Okay, so it is also possible for you to have the free trial for only 14 days if you contact our official WhatsApp. Okay, so the keywords, okay, I already sent the present list anyway, and then there are 2 keywords. The first one is the fun assessment, and the second one is a holistic approach. Okay, so yes, I would like to say thank you for all of you who have joined our webinar today. Okay, so I want you to fill in the present list before you go, please, because we only give Yeah, we only give the certificate, E-Certificate, for those who have filled in the keyword. Okay, we are going to give that one also in our YouTube. Do not worry, I will send it to you as well. Also, we are going to remind you that our September event will also be ran next week on 5th and also 29th September, and we are going to have 32 JP workshop. Okay, so the webinar is on 15th and 29th, and the workshop will be on 21st and 22nd. Okay, so Bapak Ibu, if you want to know more, you can take a look at on our Instagram at hi.atlaz. Okay, so again, thank you so much for joining, and you can have, you have to fill in the present list. Do not worry, don't forget. And I'm going to send all of the certificate. The team will send it to your email. Okay. All right, teachers. Thank you so much for today's session. I think that is all for today. I will close our session. Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Okay. Bye-bye.
Anticipate the gravity loss.
Nick, there you are.
Hey, Nick, why are you soaking wet?
Hey guys, the weather is so hot today.
Heat the butter or oil in a large saute pan, add the kimchi and onion and saute over medium heat until the onion becomes golden. Finally, add salt and transfer to a plate. Top the
That
serving.
evening, there was a Ngerupuk parade. It's a traditional parade where people would march on the streets.